everybody, welcome back to nap time. I hope everyone had an amazing Valentine's Day. I most certainly did. If you did a Galentine's Day, I hope that was fun. If you just did a self-Valentine's Day, a Salentine's Day, I hope you had a great time. And if you don't celebrate the holiday, then I hope you had a great weekend. I also hope that if you watched the video with my boyfriend, you enjoyed it. He is so silly and so painstakingly shy. Getting him on to do the podcast, it wasn't terribly hard to convince him to do it because he wanted to support me, but it was hard to convince him that he would be okay. So I hope that you liked I hope you liked the episode, because honestly, we had to cut out like 40 minutes of it because it's just us cackling at stupid jokes that we were making. So we had a lot of fun filming that together, and I just hope that you have a lot of fun watching it. He's not in today's episode. He probably won't be in one for a while now. Maybe once we get to the Star Wars concentrated episode, he can be in that, because he knows more about the books than I do. So we could go all in there. Let's get into it. This weekend was actually a super eventful weekend because it was Valentine's Day. And Saturday, honestly, the whole day, me and him both said this a couple of times, it felt like a dream. It felt like we were in a fever dream for the entirety of the day because it was just perfect. Every little thing was perfect. It's been a little cold here, which is weird, but that polar vortex is still happening very, very prominently, and it's, I think, back in full swing right now. So it's still cold here, and we went to see the new Captain America movie in theaters. There's a theater here that I really love going to, love supporting them. And so we went to go see the new Captain America movie, which was amazing, by the way. I'm so excited that Anthony Mackie finally got his solo film. I think he's doing a great job as Captain America. I think he has done a wonderful job of, if you see it, especially if you've seen the show, you saw his progression of the fight moves that he has mixed in the movie is a perfect mixture of Captain America training, his military training, just the upbringing that his character has had, being friends with Bucky. It all is just melded together so beautifully and very respectfully, and I love that a lot. I love getting to see Harrison Ford on the screen. I've missed him a lot. There are a couple actors that I hold very dearly to me, that feel like family to me. I'm sure other people, if their families were big movie watchers growing up, have some too. Harrison Ford is one of those. He's always been like a father figure to me. And so just seeing him and seeing him play a dad, it was emotional. I did cry a lot during that movie. Just so proud of everyone, so happy. It felt like early 2000s Marvel, which I have been severely missing when it comes to Marvel movies. It was beautiful. It was great. I loved it. Very funny. Very good. Very good. If you like Marvel, I think you're really gonna like that movie. And we also went to dinner at this really nice place. It's a chain all across, I want to say all across America. But it's a big chain restaurant called Landry's. And so we went there for dinner, and there are just a lot of things that he hasn't gotten to experience yet, and we've been kind of knocking them out, just one right after the other. One is eating at a restaurant as fancy as Landry's. And he was just so excited the entire time. And I personally love Landry's. I was super stoked that is where he had made the reservations for Valentine's dinner, and the food there is always so amazing. The wait staff is always so kind, and we're eating our food, and I let him have a bite of mine, which was their Applejack sea bass. So good. And he just looked at me and he was like, that is the most delicious thing that I've ever eaten in my entire life. And I was like, oh, really? Your entire life? And he was like, yeah, that's it. And then he just kept looking very enviously at my plate, and I felt a little bad for him because he liked what he got, but mine was just better, which, I mean, I think that might always be the case because I know how to order. I'm a great orderer. So that was great. Amazing dinner. We had an amazing dessert there. Everyone was so kind. They're so funny. It was just, the whole day was just amazing. We were like sleepy for a good portion of it. We went swimming in the middle of the day. There's just like some pools here at our apartments, and we went swimming because I'm not a very strong swimmer, and he also is potentially not a very strong swimmer, not underwater. At least he's good at like treading water. And so I was just like, well, like, let me show you what I can do. And then I was showing him that I can in fact mermaid swim if I put my mind to it. Like, I learned how to do that in high school, and so then we played mermaids for a little bit. It's pretty cool. I'm Safrina. I control the storms. My tail is gray, or like a silvery gray and gold, and when it's lightning out, it flickers gold, like the gold, flickers like lightning. And he was Alexander, and he controlled frogs and toads and things of the sort. And yeah, he could make like little air bubbles around them so that he could bring them down into the ocean and they'd be fine, and then he'd send them back up. And we were from warring families, so very, very Romeo and Juliet. And yes, it was love at first sight, but could never be. So that was our mermaids experience, and it also was another first for him. He had never played mermaids before. Very disheartening. He made a great merman. Oh, his tail was green, but it had like the cool spots on it that so many frogs have, so it had like little cool little froggy spots on it. That's what we did. And then Sunday we rearranged the living room so that we could be close to the TV, because my vision is not so great lately, and I have a pair of glasses, but I haven't gotten my vision checked in a couple of years. I probably should go do that, but it's very expensive. So I have glasses and they work mostly when I have to watch the TV because it's very blurry for me. So he rearranged the living room to make the couch really close to the TV so that we could sit there all day and play Stardew Valley, which we did. Made a lot of progress. Almost found all the golden walnuts on Ginger Island. If you are a Stardew player, you will know what I'm talking about. So that's what we did this weekend. Hope you guys had a fun weekend. Week ahead is looking pretty good. I am actually going to send out like a birthday letter. My birthday is coming up. Hello. And I'm sending out a letter to a bunch, I think 80. I have a list of 80 different companies and corporations. I'm going to be sending them all letters asking for free shit. Because why not? What are the worst that they can do is say no, right? Maybe coupons they could send me, or samples or something. I need a new computer, so it'd be cool if I could get a coupon to get a new computer. That would be great. And I will be spending a good portion of this next week. I have all of them here. Ooh, my goodness. I have all of them here. I will be handwriting every single letter because I believe that's the only way to do it. I have my wax seal kit here because obviously, and then this is an address stamp, so I can just all the addresses in and not have to write it out 1,010 times. So that's gonna be really fun. And now I want to very coolly segue into drama. The happenings of the week. Happenings of the week, happenings of the weekend, things that have been going on. Most prominently, obviously, is the fact that Duolingo appears to have died. Hit by, I believe, a Tesla, it seemed. crazy. It was hit by a Cybertruck. R.I.P. Duolingo. I'm still keeping my streak going. Me and the boyfriend are learning Arabic together, and I'm also working on French and on my own, and he's working on Polish on his own, but we do Arabic together. So, you know, that's fun. It seems that they're marketing grief for some weird reason right now. You can go get like a Duolingo plushie, which is so ridiculous. And what I really loved about that is, one, realizing that there are Duolingo accounts for multiple different countries and watching them all interact. It feels very similar to when we learned that Big Bird has Big Bird cousins in all the different countries, and we were like, what do you mean? What do you mean there's a Spain Big Bird? And then you saw him. Feels very similar to that. And I'm also really loving just all these other big company TikTok accounts that are interacting with it and making their own TikToks about it. I think Buffalo Wild Wings made a video where they were cooking up green chicken because they were like, wow, Duo, you know, no, don't worry, we're gonna make sure you go to good use now. And I think Duolingo had a baby with Scrub Daddy, or there was beef with Scrub. I think it had a baby with Scrub Daddy. There was a video of Duolingo giving birth. You saw the little duos pop out. It's very, very heartwarming. So I feel like if you're looking for just something stupid to do to fill up 15-20 minutes of your life while you're waiting for something else, just look up Duolingo's death and just see everything else that I'm sure is popping up to do with Duolingo's death. Also, all the other characters in Duolingo have also died. Lily, the bear, who I think starts with an R. Anyways, all the other little characters for Duolingo have also died. Under mysterious circumstances, I might say. So I'm really excited to see if this is actually them doing something or if they're just being fucking weird. Who knows? And very important, the SNL 50-year anniversary just happened! Yay! I've never seen a full episode of SNL. So sorry about that. I do love so many of the people that have come from it. I've seen so many skits, and I've loved all of them. I was really sad that Dan Aykroyd and Bill Hader weren't there, but, you know, as long as they're taking care of them. I was also very surprised to see certain celebrities there, like Aubrey Plaza. And I just want to give her 1,000 hugs, and just I hope she's doing the best that she can right now mentally. And I really loved her tie-dye shirt. It was very beautiful indeed. Always good to see Seth Meyers and Amy Poehler back together, you know, hanging out. That's always really fun. Jimmy Fallon just being a nerd, especially with Tina Fey. Tina and Amy are just like such a classic duo. Andy Samberg coming back to his roots was also really beautiful to see. I think his wife was there with him wearing a very ridiculous and really cool top. I just loved seeing it. I also love seeing that Adam Sandler, the man who's known for wearing sweats and shit to, well, everything. Every award show, everything that he does, he wore a suit to this. And I like that. I like where his priorities are in this. Beautiful, beautiful work. 10 out of 10. There was, lastly, something that I saw on TikTok, and it was this aunt talking about how her brother and sister-in-law were too busy to take their kid to a birthday party. So she was like, hey, no stress. I ain't got nothing on. I'll take the kid to the birthday party. And they're like, okay, cool. Here's the invite. So what you're gonna do, like the party plan is go to the mall, go to Build-A-Bear. Each kid's gonna build a bear. And then gonna go back to the house for like cakes and ice cream and presents and all that. Okay, cool. A 2-location party for children sounds awful, by the way. Just planning and executing. Oh, sounds like a nightmare on the parents. But anyways, So this lady's like, okay, cool, whatever. She picks up her niece or nephew, can't remember which, and they go to the party for this little girl. And they're they're doing the stuffed animals and everything, and she pays for the extra accessories on it of her own money, because $35 seemed to already be given to her for the bears. I believe the parents gave her that, and so she was like, okay, I'll put 35 of my own money in for the bears. And then they all, once they finished, it wasn't like a Build-A-Bear party, it was just like they all just went at the same time. They all come out, and the mom of the birthday girl is like, okay, cool, give us all your bears. And they were like, what? She's like, yeah, give all the bears to Sarah. That's not really the little girl's name, but that's, for the sake of the story, what we're calling her. Give the bears to her so that she can play with them. They're hers. You guys all just made these bears for her. And the parents are like, what? Because it wasn't anywhere on the invite. On the invite, it was like, enjoy building your own bears. It's Build-A-Bear. So then they all go to the house, and the aunt at this point is still thinking like, okay, maybe like with our goodie bags or something, they'll give them back to us in like some cute way, whatever. So she's trying not to be pressed. So she comes, gives them the present that she had brought for them, because it wasn't indicated in any way, shape, or form that these bears were going to be the present. So all the parents had brought this kid a present, brings a present to her, and then they have, I think she said it was like playtime or something like that, where that little girl sat and played with all of the bears by herself in front of everyone. So all the kids, all the parents, they just like sat there and watched this little girl play with the bears by herself? That's crazy. Criminal work right there. Psychotic behavior. So the aunt was like, we were under the impression that we were gonna get those bears back. I put in like 35 of my own money into that bear. And she was like, oh, well, we'll look into getting that back to you. And she's like, no, it's okay. We're just going to leave now. We're going to leave. We're going to go. And the mom was like, oh, really? Like, so soon? And she's like, yeah, we're going to go. And apparently all the other parents followed suit, which makes sense. But can you imagine? That's so crazy. That's so psychotic. Why would you ever do that? That kid is not going to have anyone attend her next birthday party unless they are new to the area. Feel bad for little Sarah. These are like 7, 8-year-olds too, if I remember correctly. That's absolutely banana bonkers crazy. Getting back into it, we of course watched some Love Island this weekend. We watched some of, in my opinion, the best episodes just over the whole last week. I mean, we got everything, really. Casa happened. Oh. So Casa happened, the recoupling happened, movie night happened. Ooh. And the heart race challenge that happened. Yeah, Cassie's now back in the villa, and we're currently on the episode where the winning couples are getting to talk to their families. So we're towards the end of that episode, but we had to pause it there. So that's where we're at. We're nearing the end, and I gotta say, I love Rob so much. He's so stupid. He's so sarcastic, but also like a really genuine person. I think here's my theory. Here's my theory is that Rob has always been attractive. Therefore, he didn't have to develop not even a personality, because he's really funny and he has a personality, but he doesn't have to be like showy about it. I always had to be showy about it because it was like, oh, I'm not attractive, but look at how great my personality is. Like a bird showing off its colors. He's never had to do that. It's just like he's gorgeous, so people are attracted to him, and then he's just like, hey, I like to sit here and be calm. And they're like, don't like that. He's like, okay. But he's adorable. Love his overalls. Love the way that he is about bugs. There is one episode that we were just watching, and there is a beetle, a really cool beetle. And he just books it off the couch to go grab the beetle and pick it up and like show it to whoever he was talking to at the time. We were laughing so hard about that. We were like, this is just a guy. He just wants to be with bugs. Like, he does not want to be here right now, is what this feels like. He's just a chill guy. He is really loving Leah and Miguel together, which is good. I haven't been able to show him all the edits and everything that have happened because of that season, because I don't want anything to be spoiled for him, and it's killing me because the Leah and Miguel ones are so cute, and hearing them talk about each other in like present day and everything. I don't want to spoil it for him because he doesn't know who's still together and who isn't. He doesn't know about the Kendall and Nicole drama, and every time he says something I want to be like, did you know that this also happens? I can't do that yet. We're getting really close though. We're on episode 33. I think we're about to finish episode 33. So we're getting really close, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited I could scream. And yeah, he loves Janae, and he loves Kenny, loves Lee and Miguel, does not like Kendall and Nicole, fair, and doesn't really have an opinion on Serena and Cordell. He thinks they're cool, he thinks they're cute, or whatever. We don't get to see a lot of them. We're starting to see more, but we don't get to see a lot of them because the show, like, they focus so much on Kendall and Nicole, Kayla and Aaron and Rob, because they're in love. Rob and whoever he's with that day. The poor man, he's being passed around like the fucking town's bicycle. It's ridiculous. So, those are his standings right now. Everyone's getting to meet all the families. So today, I actually wanted to talk to you guys about mythology. All sorts of mythology in the world, because it's one of my favorite things to talk about. We will dabble in and out with religion in this topic, because what is religion if not a form of mythology? So, I love mythology. Love it. Always have. These are just my recent books. These are just the ones I've gotten in the last year. Unfortunately, most of my books are in storage. I love mythology. I love mythology from all different countries and places. I think the origins are really interesting. I took a world mythology class in high school. I loved it so much. It was one of the best teachers that school had. She was amazing. She was so great. And so what I have always been drawn to about mythology, it's always felt more real to me than anything else. What I've always loved about mythology is that you can read all of these, right? And there will be similar themes, there will be similar creatures, there will be the same little warning stories in every culture that you look through. From every country, every walk of life. None of these people could communicate to each other. They had no way of recording this, of keeping it yet, and they passed down their stories through word of mouth, through paintings on the cave walls, you know, through any means that they could, etching it into stone. And these stories, still so prevalent to this day, I just think that's amazing. I think it's amazing that they were making these stories and that they all made the same stories, if that makes sense. Like, not the exact same, but very similar. Very similar. If you're looking at, even if you're just looking at things that are, you know, supernatural, things that go bump in the night, there is 1,000 different names for one single thing, because they all have their own version of it. They all have their own version of mermaids. They all have their own version of aliens, Sasquatch, you know, Yeti, whatever. And I think that's really cool. And on the one hand, it's like, well, yeah, these things existed. They had to have existed, or exist now, or, you know, you look at it from the point of view of they didn't have glasses, so seeing it, you know, when it's blurry, you're trying to make out what it is. Oh, that kind of looks like a person, but it's a manatee, Christopher Columbus. But what gets me, what I think is really beautiful, is that every mythology story that you get is from these people that didn't understand science yet, obviously, and they needed a way to explain things happening in their world. They needed a way to explain the pretty colors that only come out every now and then in their sky. They needed to explain why sometimes it feels like the sky is angry with you and it starts shaking and thundering and lightning and all of that stuff is happening. To explain how you got there, how trees got there, birds got there, all of that. And they're stories that were to be warnings, obviously. Really good at warning. They are stories that were supposed to inspire. They were stories that were supposed to teach. It's just crazy what they all have in common. And I think that it's also just really beautiful that they all did this. That humans have, for our entirety of being on this earth, which is a very small period of time compared to the longevity of the planets themselves, we sat around and we looked at all of the crazy things that we see. We saw the way that the birds interacted with each other, how they interacted when the temperature dropped a little bit, and we noticed that. We're good at noticing things. And we will make art out of anything. Really, truly well. I mean, that anglerfish that was sick and dying and came up to the shore recently within the last 2 weeks, and people are making art out of it and talking about how it's, you know, beautiful and it finally got to see a light that it didn't have to create. Gorgeous. Humans are gorgeous, and we've always done stuff like that. We're storytellers. That's what we love. And in our roots, we looked up and we saw all of these things, all these beautiful things that are happening in the world, and we said we have to figure out how all of this came to be, because it can't have just happened, right? Like, something made this, and it is so beautiful and so amazing and so great that we have to take this something and we have to show our appreciation for it. And that's religion. How it started. I just think that's crazy, because every religion, every myth, every story revolves around the same thing. It has the same ending. They've all come from all different walks of life, all over the world, people that don't speak the same language, don't even know the others exist. And yet they're all sitting there saying, this is beautiful, this is wonderful, there has to be more, and it's beautiful and wonderful. And I'm beautiful and wonderful because I'm a part of it. And then they just created fucking religion. That's crazy to me. That's so wild. Are you kidding me? And they all came out with their own little myths and legends, and Mima's smoking peyote one day, and she tells you, like, yeah, this guy, he came and they fought each other, and when one of them died, he laid down and his spine became the mountains. And you're like, this is a man that we're laying on. What are you talking about? It's ridiculous. It's all just to keep each other safe. It's all to show their appreciation. Which is to say that at the core of every myth, at the core of every story, is love. It's all love. Everything in the world is love. Everything that you see, everything that you hear, everything that you touch, it's love. I've been thinking about this since I was a little girl, and just thinking, it's love. Love is everywhere. It's ridiculous. It's the way that you should look at yourself in the mirror, the way that you look at your pets. It's the way that songs are written and what songs are written about, especially back then. Movies. Hardly is there ever a movie that doesn't have love in it. I actually cannot think of a movie that doesn't have love in it. Might not always be good love or pure love or happy, healthy love, but there's love in it. Love of the game, love for each other, love for a friend, love for yourself, love for your daughter, for your sister, for your wife, for your mother. There's love everywhere, around everything. And it started here. I have a book. I do not presently, on my person, have it. I do believe it is with my parents in Colorado. And it's, I think it's an old encyclopedia book, I want to say. It's an old collections book. So it had a bunch of things, you know, a collection of things in one book. And, oh, it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful, so well put together. And it had stories of the Greek stories in there, and you know, that nice like tissue paper that would sometimes separate it. It would have beautiful art on it of the myths. And when we first moved in with my dad in Steamboat, I used to sit by the window all the time and I'd read that book, specifically that one. There was a whole collection of it. This guy had it furnishing his townhome that we were staying in, and I would read it all the time. It was so beautiful, so beautiful. I loved reading about Cupid. Loved reading about Cupid, which I actually have that here. And then we were moving and I had to leave the books, all of them, and I was distraught. Absolutely just so sad that I would have to leave those because I read them all the time. Or I would, at a minimum, I would just hold them. I would just sit in the window and I would just hold them and just feel, you know, just, do you ever do that? Just hold a book and you can just like feel all the stories like in your soul. That's what you're doing. It feels like you're just absorbing it all up. And we moved. And my dad, the man that I call my dad, unpacked those boxes into the new house. And I said, what? And he said, I asked the guy. We bought them all. So for the remainder of the podcast, I'm going to read to you one of my favorite stories that I loved reading. I did talk to my mom, and they're old Reader's Digests put into like book form. Those are the books that he got us. And so I was just really attached to the Greek mythology one. So I'm going to read to you one of my favorite stories from Greek mythology that I used to read just over and over again as a little teenager. And I haven't read it in this book's version yet, so I hope that it does it justice, because I know that with mythologies there are several different versions of the same story. So the specific one is Eros and Psyche. Once there was a king and a queen with 3 lovely daughters. The youngest daughter, Psyche, was so beautiful, so fair-faced, that she was revered throughout the land, and the subjects of her father reached out to touch her as she passed. No suitors dared to cross her doorstep, so highly was she worshipped. Psyche was deeply lonely. Her beauty became legend, far and wide, and it was not long before word of it reached the ears of Aphrodite, the epitome of all beauty, the goddess of love herself. Tales of the young princess enraged the jealous goddess, and she made plans to dispose of her. Aphrodite arranged for Psyche's father to present Psyche as a sacrifice in order to prevent his kingdom being devoured by a monster, and this he grudgingly did, placing her on a mountaintop and bidding her a tearful farewell. Eros, the errant son of Aphrodite, was sent to murder Psyche, But he too was entranced by her gentle ways, and implored Zephyr, the west wind, to lift her and place her down far from the hillside in a lush and verdant valley. When Psyche opened her eyes, she found herself in front of a sumptuous palace, unlike any she had seen before. She called out, and although there was no response, quiet voices simmered just beyond her hearing, comforting her, soothing her, setting her at ease. She stretched and thought briefly of food, at which a platter of succulent morsels was laid, as if by magic, at her disposal. When she grew tired, a soft bed was presented, and she slipped dreamlessly into sleep. Psyche woke in the night. A presence had stirred her, but she felt no fear. A warmth pervaded the room, and she closed her eyes, sinking into its musky perfume. She was joined and embraced by a body so inviting, she gave herself at once. Filled by a presence of joy that overwhelmed her. "Who are you?" she whispered, and a finger was laid firmly to her lips. She said no more, spending the night in tender love. When she woke, she felt gilded, but her bed was empty. And so the days passed, with Psyche growing ever more peaceful, ever happier. She had clothes and jewels which miraculously appeared. She'd tried to learn more about this man who held her each night in passionate embrace, but he'd told her that his identity must remain secret or their alliance would be no more. She agreed to his wishes because she loved him, because he filled her with a sense of belonging that she had never before experienced. One day, however, her peaceful idyll was interrupted by the cries of her two sisters. Concerned about her disappearance, they'd spent many weeks searching the hills, and now they stood just beyond the bend of the valley. Shrieking with delight, Psyche raced up the mountain and drew them back into her new home. And as she toured her sisters around her exquisite palace, she failed to notice their growing silence, their churlish looks. Her sisters were sickened with envy, and they teased their younger sister about her ghostly lover. "No," she protested, "he was real." She felt him, explored him each night, held him warm in her arms. But her sisters taunted and teased until Psyche agreed to seek out his identity. That night, when he came to her once again, she broke her word for the first time, leaning across him to light the oil lamp. As she moved, a drop of the hot liquid fell onto the snow-white skin of her lover, and his face was revealed. He was none other than the most beautiful of the gods, Eros, son of Aphrodite. But burned and bewildered, he rose from her bed and disappeared from her forever. Psyche's torment was so deep that she tried to take her own life. Eros, still deeply in love with his wife, but now invisible to her, saved her on each occasion, caring for her as she traveled across the kingdom in search of him. He longed to touch her, but the wrath of his mother was more than he could bear. He longed to speak to her, but he could use only the trees, the winds, the creatures of the forest to deliver his words. Searching far and wide for Eros, Psyche came, by and by, to the home of Aphrodite. Poisoned by her jealousy, Aphrodite resolved to dispose of the young princess, knowing not of her son's attachment, caring only that Psyche was more beautiful than she. That Psyche had eluded her careful plot to send her to her death. She set the young princess impossible tasks, determined to punish her farther. The first task was to pluck the golden wool from a flock of bloodthirsty sheep. As Psyche stood by the edge of their paddock, she heard the quiet song of the reeds and the wind. As she listened, their words became clear. She was not to pluck the wool from their backs. There, on the gorse bushes which lined their field, was the wool that had been brushed from their hides each time they passed. She crept over and filled her basket. Gleefully, she returned to Aphrodite, basket held high, but her mistress's sour expression greeted her, and all hope of freedom had vanished. The goddess sent her out once again, this time to fetch water from the stream which flowed to the Styx, the river of the underworld. As she neared its banks, Psyche grew frightened. The stream itself cut through a deep gorge, and all her efforts to reach its waters failed. Furthermore, as she caught a glimpse of its shimmering blackness, she became aware of the guard of dragons who patrolled its shores, boiling the seething waters with their fiery breath. She sank down in despair, her bottle falling to her side. Suddenly, it was snatched up and into the air, clutched in the grasp of Zeus's royal eagle. The winds had told him of Psyche's plight, and enchanted by her loveliness, he vowed to help her. Smoothly, he dodged the dragons, filling the flask and returning it to her waiting arms. Aphrodite was ill-pleased by this success. She had imagined Psyche long dead by now, and set all her powers of determination to plot the third task. Psyche was to descend to the afterworld and beg Persephone for some of her beauty, which should be returned to Aphrodite. Once again, he tried to take her own life, deep in desolation and longing for Eros, and frustrated by the seemingly impossible tasks before her, but yet again she was plucked from death by Eros, and through his powers realized the way to achieve her task. The tower from which she had attempted to leap confirmed the instructions. Psyche was to follow the nearby path, which would take her to the afterworld. She was to take several things along: barley cakes and honey cakes for Cerberus, the three-headed dog who guarded the entry, and 2 coins to pay Charon, the ferryman. She was to ignore the messages of her own kind heart and refuse help to anyone who sought her assistance along the way. Psyche set off, the words ringing in her ears. As she journeyed, she was met by hapless travelers who called out for her help. At every turn lay another trap set by Aphrodite, who was determined for Psyche to remain in the afterworld once and for all. But Psyche, too, had determination. Fed by love for Eros, to whom she longed to return, she made her way past the pitfalls set out for her and on to Persephone, who presented her with a box. As she returned once more to the land of the living, she was struck by curiosity and opened the box. The box seemed empty, but as she struggled to close it, she felt an overwhelming sleep flower around her, kissing shut her eyes and drawing from her lungs her final breath. Death clung to the maiden, embracing her lifelessness, waiting for its usurpation to be complete. Ever vigilant, Eros flew down, brushing the sleep of death from her eyes and placing it back in the box, and so Psyche was revived, fresh and invigorated and glowing with new life. She returned to Aphrodite and handed over the deadly box. She waited with anticipation. Surely Aphrodite was finished with her now. But the goddess had a final task in store for Psyche, and led her to a large shed, full of various grains. Here lay oats and black beans, millets, lentils, vetch, and poppy seeds, wheat and rye, mixed together in an overwhelming pile. Psyche was to sort it, said Aphrodite firmly, and then she could be free. Psyche crouched down and gingerly picked at the pile. Tears welled in her eyes, and she felt the beginnings of despair touching again at her heart. As the first glistening tear fell, a tiny voice woke her from her sorrow. An ant, enchanted by the lovely princess, had moved to her side. He could help, he said, and so it was that hundreds of ants marched to the pile, and within just 1 hour the pile was sorted. Aphrodite was enraged, but she was also wise enough to know that Psyche was not going to succumb to her plots. She set her free, and Psyche set off once more in her search for Eros. Now, Eros had been deeply disillusioned by his mother's antics. Her jealousy had sparked in him a rebellion such as he'd never felt before, and with a revelatory burst, he flew at once to Olympus and begged Zeus to offer his advice. Zeus was the king of the gods for many reasons. Throughout his reign, many such sensitive matters were put before him, and his awesome wisdom and sense of justice had always prevailed. On this day, Eros was not disappointed. Zeus examined the goodness of Psyche, her dedication, and her exquisite charms. He agreed to allow her marriage to Eros. He agreed to make her immortal, and in return, Eros must become reconciled to his mother, and they must share the deep respect of family. And so it was that Psyche became a daughter to Aphrodite and entered a union with Eros. She returned once again to her palace in the valley, to a happiness that was enriched by the goodness in her heart, and which was, as a result of her tribulations, now complete. That's my favorite Greek mythology story. It's just so beautiful. There's so many in Greek mythology that are just so beautiful. There's so many in all the mythologies that are so beautiful. But that one just, I don't know. It always stuck with me. Always carried me, I guess. And honestly, when I reflect back, a lot of the things that I've been interested in life have all spurned from my love for mythology. the amount that I love Lore Olympus and Percy Jackson, Greek mythology. The games that I would play when I was little, mythology. All mythology based. Some of my favorite book series is based in mythology. The Mummy, which is one of my favorite movies, mythology. It's just all so beautiful, and I love having this like connection to the old, what the people that came before us, that led us. Look at this. Look at how beautiful this is. I love a good beautiful book. I wish they'd stop putting stickers on books. That'd be great. Look at this. Look at how gorgeous she is. Look at how gorgeous she is. Look at how gorgeous she is. Look at how gorgeous they are. Oh my goodness. When I was in high school and I was taking that world mythology class, one of the assignments that they had given us actually was to write a mythology yourself and have a piece of art that would go with it, as most mythologies do. And I wrote a story about dragons. I bet I could find the story, and if you guys are good, I could read the story for you. But it was about the beginning of time and how these dragons were the beginning of time. The fire from one is what heated the core of the earth to keep it going. The speed of another is what kept it circling just like slowly in space. The tears from one is like the oceans, stuff like that. It's really good, especially considering the fact that I was a teenager when I wrote it. So I want to know what your favorite mythology is. I want to know the region that your favorite mythology is from, what's your favorite story, who is your favorite, god, goddess, pharaoh, whatever. I want to know about it. I don't know a lot about Chinese mythology. I believe I've only read 1 or 2 stories from them, but it was also really cool and really beautiful. So no matter where your mythology is from that you would like to share with me, I would love to hear about it and read it, and then maybe I'll just pull up that mythology story that I wrote in high school. I think I know where it is. I'll find it and read it to you guys sometime. That is all we have for today. I'm so glad that you guys are here. Hope you had a great Valentine's Day and loved yourselves above all. If you haven't already, please make sure that you are subscribed to my channel. It will make it infinitely easier to find me if you haven't been able to really in the past. Like this video, comment on the video, hit the share button, and maybe actually share it with people if you know someone that will like it. That'd also be very helpful for me. I'm gonna miss you the next week that I don't have you, but I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you have a beautiful weekend ahead of you. Thanks for joining Nap Time.